They played in the Empire Classic against Syracuse. It was actually a fantastic game down the stretch, and interesting from the standpoint as we know Syracuse is known for their zone defense with Jim Boeheim. Richmond plays the Princeton offense and weren't really able to do that tonight because of the zone against Syracuse. I mean, but hey, Patric, okay, did you love or hate playing against a zone when you were playing at Florida?
Gosh, striving to remember. I remember putting the zone on against people. I like the zone. You have a good middle flasher and a big man that can seal. You can get a team out of that zone real quick. And then the weakness of a zone, as we know, is rebounding. Mm-hmm. It's a lot harder to match up from that aspect. But if the ball, the zone, especially if you're looking at a 1-3-1 or a 2-3, they're trying to get you to just let that ball bounce around the wing, take long threes, just settle with that. And obviously, being a big guy that didn't shoot threes, I would get frustrated if that's what we started relying on. But I also understood the dynamic of putting on a good zone with length and how effective that can be for a team when it's communicated really well. So I can see both sides of it, especially coming out of a timeout, especially if it's something that a team has struggled with in the past. But we know Syracuse is known for that. The teams that do the best job of beating Syracuse in their zone is the teams that can take care of the ball. Richmond had 18 turnovers. Syracuse scored 27 points off of those turnovers. You got to have a middle flash guy that can pass it, that can feel comfortable, maybe knocking down that mid-range, maybe a big that can preoccupy down in the paint and seal, knock down a few easy ones. We lost to Syracuse the one time we played them during my time. But we should have won.
We should have won. Yeah.
Always should have won. Should have beat Michigan in the Elite Eight too, but they kicked our butts. Oh my gosh, they beat us so bad.
It's up there. Played them twice. We played them twice at Michigan. Close both times. Once with Scoop. We played against Scoop, who was a shout out to Scoop. There was a field of 68, and I've been on with him a couple times. Scoop beat us. And we played them in the Final Four, and when they had Michael Carter, Williams, and that good Brandon Trish, and we had we had Mitch McGarry, to Patric's point, who we could get it to in the high post, and he could face up. And
he was a gazelle.
Yeah, he could run, he could pass, he could run on the glass, and but when you're like Princeton, like you said, Megan, or Richmond running Princeton offense. Like, how much do you think they practiced against zone in the preseason?
Yeah, no,
right,
not much.
Exactly.
You got to get that. Takes timing. That takes commitment. You got to work it. You got new guys coming in learning it, and I'm sure they had some zone days. You plan those in as a coach, but then the Syracuse zone is different. They're high and wide on the wings, and it's hard to make a swing to the corner. They really jump that lane, so you end up with 18 turnovers, and in a game that's, 1 or 2 possessions. And they did get them back on the glass. They had 20 offensive rebounds. But I just think when you see that, Sarah actually played them 3 times, that thing is so different than what you can't simulate it in practice. And when you're playing, if you play a good Princeton offensive team, like you're going to prepare for it, but the speed at which they cut, you can't simulate that in practice. Like we played Bill Carmody's teams at Northwestern. I mean, you could practice it, but the way they run it, you can't duplicate. You can practice it against zone, but the way Syracuse does it, it's hard to simulate, and so it throws your rhythm off, and you end up, and you don't get to the foul line. So the other way to stay in a game, right, obviously take care of the basketball, but to get to the foul line, well, you end up shooting jump shots, and so it's hard to get to the foul line.
To your point, by the way, of the offensive rebounds, 20 offensive rebounds for Richmond. 5 of them came in the last 10 seconds in overtime when Richmond was trying to get a shot up, and they kept having opportunities to, but just could not capitalize at the end. I mean, I was watching and like pulling my hair out. I was like, they're getting great looks, but they got every single award.
They did. They had a couple good looks, and they tried the high ball screen. They tried to go with, setting the ball screen to try to create an advantage. And which it does, but then playing out of it, it's like making the pass out of it with the length of the hands.
You gotta touch. I feel like you gotta touch the paint a little bit. If you're playing that high ball screen, it's got to touch the paint. You got to make somebody overcommit and then get that ball. Whoever is open, if that's the open look and as you get it, you got to take that shot. You knock them down, but Syracuse ain't going. They're not coming out of their zone. They're not a team that's going to be in the zone. You make a few shots on them, they're going to come out of it. That's not going to happen.
I love Boeheim for that. I love it. I mean, it's great. And it's been successful. He's got more than 1,000 wins. Come on now.
And Joe Girard goes for 30. It's like, my goodness. Like, hey, if we got one thing on the scouting report wrong, we can't let Joe Girard get 30 on us. like anybody else.
Anybody else.
He had like 21 in the first half, I believe. It was something insane like that. But Coach, Joe Girard, he had 21 points in the first half. When you have a player like that who's just going off, I got really frustrated watching in the second half because I thought he took some bad shots. But when someone has the hot hand, do you let that go, or do you say, hey, like, you got to be smarter?
It's he's got the neon ultimate green light and ultimate freedom.
Neon.
And so that's hard. It's hard to guard. Like, Patric, you've been like, it's hard to, when a guy has Jimmer Fredette or Steph Curry, or like when JJ Redick, like when you're playing against a guy, it does, like, he's got no rules on him when you're the defense, and he can shoot anywhere, anytime, and his coach is okay with that. Like, yeah, it's scary because it's like they don't mind him taking bad shots, and so his confidence is through the roof. You wish you probably would have not taken a few of those down the stretch. I thought a couple of them were questionable as well. But that's just how coach allows him to play. And, if that's the best version of them, for them to get the best Syracuse team on the court, you always ask the question, who's that other coach deathly afraid of down there on the other bench? It's like, well, you're probably deathly afraid of Joe Girard going for 30, 35, 40. Like, he's got more than 30 in him. And Judah Mintz is a really good sidekick for a freshman. So I know he was committed to Pitt, going to play with Jeff Capel. Now ended up at Syracuse, and he's a heck of a sidekick, putting up points as a young player.
There you go.
Patric, I mean, Mintz looked not like a freshman tonight for most of this game. What did you take away from his play?
Confidence, just someone that has that. He knows who he is, and isn't afraid to make mistakes as well. Because there's something that can happen easily as a freshman. You come into a new program as historic and legendary, playing for a Hall of Fame coach. It's a big stage, and it seems as though that Mintz is ready to step up. Having Girard as a teammate that is showing him the blueprint for how to just go out there and get yours and make it happen. It's really awesome to see that from a freshman, and can't wait to see him have like one of those breakout games where he ends up with 30.
The thing is, he's had so we had Chuck Harris at Butler, who was from Gonzaga, and Chuck's a little older than Judah, but so I saw Judah when he was younger. He never lacked for confidence, even as a freshman in high school. It was like he believed he was that guy, and so you see him play now. It's like he's older, he's more mature, his body's changed, but same attitude.